on Wednesdays we've looked at the distillery and the equipment and, some experimental things that we're doing. And one of the big important ingredients for whiskey, most people know, is the corn. And we were fortunate enough it's been about 6 years ago, we were able to purchase the farm directly behind our distillery and connected to our distillery. And one of the first things we did was plant some experimental fields of corn. And we're raising, it's about 18 acres here of experimental corn every year. And we put that corn away and make barrels of whiskey with it. And we're really just exploring. We call it the Maize Project, and we're just exploring the differences between the grains and just trying to learn a little bit more about how corn affects the flavor of the whiskey, and then what else is out there versus the standard yellow dent corn that most people use. So today we're looking at, this year we've decided to plant an heirloom variety, Flint variety of corn. So it's literally thousands of years old, some of the earliest known corns out there. And that's something we've kind of focused on, is some of the history of corn as it's evolved over time. We've done some 1800s varieties. We've done white corn. We've done different blue corn. This one is heirloom variety, so different colors. This one depends on which ear you pick, but for example, these are the different colors in this ear. Good looking corn. I hate to pull it off because it's going to hurt our yield a little bit. But nice looking ear of corn, and it's not quite ready. It's still got the moisture in it, you can tell. We've got about 2 or 3 more weeks of drying time before we harvest, but it'll be soon.
Okay. Yeah, I noticed it's a pretty good sized field up here. How many acres of corn are you growing up here?
Well, we're doing, like I said, we're doing about 18 acres.
Mm-hmm.
And we did a little experimental field up front, in the front of the distillery. We're just trying some different areas, because we also share time on this farm with some of our warehouse expansion. So we're going to continue to raise the corns and try different varieties. And really the focus is, corn has the starch. It has a little bit of sugar in it, and you break that starch down to sugar, and then you also have some protein and some fiber in hemicellulose and cellulose. Same things are in oak trees, and all that is designed based on the corn varieties and those ratios, and that's really what you end up with when you're making the whiskeys.
So each corn variety produces different starch contents and proteins, and so then your yeast and all that will react differently based on that variety of corn. Got it.
So typically a typical ear of corn will have, say, 75% of it will be the starch, and then we take that starch, which is like a dual glucose molecule, and we bust that up into glucose, and that's really what we're after when we're making the whiskeys. Got some other ears. See if we can get some other colors here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that one's a little bit different, and then there'll be different colors. But as we go through.
Is this the first time you've grown or tried to use this type of corn?
Yeah, this variety is the first time. Like I say, I think this is our 6th year of planting different varieties, and gives us the ability to then compare our results and really see how it reacts, and makes a good whiskey. On a typical 18 acres, we're getting anywhere, and some of the yields have varied, but on a typical season, we're getting anywhere from 100 to 200 barrels of whiskey. So it gives us plenty of good juice to compare as we go.
That was going to be my next question. How much is a field like this? How much bourbon are you making with it? So a couple hundred barrels.
At Buffalo Trace, we're of course we have to have a lot of help on our everyday legacy bourbons. We're going through thousands of acres of corn, and all in the state of Kentucky. 20,000 plus acres And here we're doing it just solely for experiments and trying different varieties. And we did 2 different varieties in 1 year. So we're just trying to learn and again establish what the differences are and see how that goes with the whiskey.
Mm-hmm. I think you've answered Aaron. Looks like Lavelle. Sorry if I mispronounced that, but he does ask, do you guys produce enough corn basically here on the farm for your annual needs?
It's good, it's good. Like I said, it's enough for us to get good samples and good variety for the whiskey experiments.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what we're doing is we're comparing that to our everyday production and seeing how that reacts in the whiskey. So it's for experimental purposes.
Got it. And Joe on Facebook, Joe Nehmeyer says, or he asks, have you ever used white corn instead of yellow corn for bourbon? He thinks the white is sweeter.
We did a lot of research on the yellow dent variety that we typically use, and originally the E.H. Taylor original recipe actually used white corn, and I didn't realize that until we started doing the history on it. And so we did do some original Taylor recipe with white corn, and that, we use white corn also with one of our vodkas that we produce. And we know that yellow or white corn is a different, especially in the oils and fatty acids. You get different levels in there, and it just creates a different style distillate, and creates something a little different.
Mm-hmm. And so, how much time do you think we have left on this before you harvest?
I'd say it'd probably be 3-4 weeks. It'd be sometime in October. We'll harvest and put it in our silo, which I guess we'll go see now.
Yeah, let's go take a ride. So, is this silo we're about to see? Let me flip this around. Is it, actually, I'm gonna have to climb in the back. Is it just the silo for the experimental corns you all are growing?
Yes.
Got it.
We put it in. Uh-oh.
Battery dead. We left it on. No. So it's nice you get to see where this actual cornfield is now and all the expansion going on up here on the farm.
Yeah, the expansion's a big part of what we're doing these days. We've got the warehouses going in. We've got the experimental fields right beside them, and we're fully utilizing the farm.
Yeah, it's so neat to see because, you see where it starts and where it ends.
Yeah. And all the experiments have been really, bourbon is a relatively new spirit. It's only been around, 250 years or, whatever. It's relatively new, so there's a lot to be explored. It's not just the grain varieties, but it's the environment and the wood and the distillates and all the different things that go into making a good bourbon.
Yeah. So I'm going to turn the camera around so we can kind of see where we came from. You can see the old cornfield back there. And then immediately you get to see all these new big warehouses where we're expanding. How many barrels those warehouses hold, Harlen?
Each warehouse holds about 58,800 barrels. And we really can't fill them up fast enough these days. There's our sawmill.
Got a sawmill on site. Expansion moving forward, full steam ahead. Yeah, it's always exciting to come up here and see how many barrels are aging. We know we got a lot of fans that like to drink it, so
it's always all about more whiskey.
That's right.
Here comes another load of barrels.
So are these new barrels getting ready to be put in the warehouse?
Yeah, so about every 20 minutes we bring up another trailer load.
Every 20 minutes. Yeah, and we covered a lot of this farm in a previous episode, so if anybody's interested to learn more about these big warehouses and that expansion, they can just look back at an older episode of Whiskey Wednesday.
So the truck will pull up here. Truck pulls up. And we've got the augers that we can load the silo, which we'll be doing in 2 or 3 weeks. And silo is designed to hold enough, it's big enough to hold what we use on site. And then we'll let it sit until spring. And we monitor this remotely, of course. Everything we do is remote, and we're checking temperatures and making sure it's in good shape. And then we'll load up in the spring, bring it down to the distillery, and make some good whiskey with it.
Yeah, that's great. So a little on-site experimental silo too for everything you're growing. How much? You don't store a ton of corn on site that you don't grow, do you? Or is it just trucked in every single day?
At the distillery, we truck in, multiple trucks per day, up to 10, 15 truckloads a day. Just depends, what day of the week it is. And we can store, we've got 6 pretty big silos that we can store about a little over 40,000 bushels of corn on site. And then we can store 6,000 bushels of rye or different smaller grains, 6,000 bushels of barley, just depending on what we're making.
What does, we have a few questions about flavor and taste. What's the main flavor profile that maybe corn brings that the other grains don't bring? Why is it so important?
It's just like when you're eating a ear corn. It is sweet. It adds that finish. Bourbon really, most of the time people think bourbon has a longer finish than other distillates. So if you're comparing it to a rye whiskey, for example, that corn adds that. So it's the sweetness from the corn. It distills through all those flavors and components, the higher alcohols, and gives it that nice long finish. So gives it that 3-part taste for bourbons.
Yeah, that makes sense, and I think it just brings so much balance and flavor. Michael Thornton asks, while we're up here on the farm, says, will Buffalo Trace Distillery eventually use the wood from oak trees grown on the farm for barrels for something like an estate bourbon? He asks.
We've done that, and so one of the things the first thing we did is we surveyed the land and figured out which of the white oaks were on the land. It wasn't a whole lot when we bought the farm, but there was a few trees that we were able to harvest and cut those in and make staves and make barrels out of them. So we did that. We put whiskey in those barrels, and they're aging right now. So we'll see how they go.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Michael Thornton, for that question. I didn't know that. That's awesome. All right. Well, Harlen, we always try to keep it under 15 minutes. We know you're busy. You got a lot going on, I'm sure. So thanks for showing us the farm and the corn.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to close out with?
Well, I'm just glad to show you the farm a little bit, and we got more to come.
Great. Thanks again, Harlen.